Lon, times are turbulent and we are heading into recession in the near future. What are some important metrics investors should keep in mind with the current market state of the market?
I'm really glad you asked that. So an earlier podcast that we recorded talks about sort of the classical ways of measuring financial success. And I think those are the cornerstones through any phase of the economy. I want to talk about the debt cover ratio today. That tends to be overlooked and maybe not nearly as well known. And I think if there's any point during the economic cycle where investors should be thinking about this, this is probably about that time. So for those of you who don't know what the DCR, the debt cover ratio is, I'll walk you through that really quick. So if it's a rental property, you would take your gross rent minus your vacancy to get your collected rent. You'd subtract out all of your operating expenses, and that gets you to NOI, net operating income. So if things were just like the normal operations, with good reserves, if things for maintenance issues and capital expense and for property management, if things are running normally, here's my cash flow. Most of us don't pay cash, though we get some debt. So what we then do is we take the net operating income and subtract out the annual debt service. So just take your mortgage payment times 12, and that is your cash on cash return, right? So we can take a ratio of the net operating income divided by the debt service, and that's your debt service ratio. So if my property generates $12,000 a year of cash flow, and if my debt service is $10,000 a year, my DCR would be a 120, 1.2 or 120%. That is a metric of financial safety. So the larger the DCR, the more metric of safety you have with this property. So if you have to lower your rents because of the recession, because there's a lot of competition to get tenants, or if you have maintenance disasters all in a row, sometimes people get unlucky and that happens and they're larger than reserves that you've set aside, or you really get spiked with the property tax increase that's coming next year. Whatever goes wrong, you'll have the financial resilience to be able to weather the storm out. So DCR is your measure of financial resilience. So what you're looking for is at least 120%. The higher the number, the larger the margin of safety that you've got. If you could be going into recession at a 130, maybe a 135, I'd sleep just a little bit better at night. So if you're looking at an asset class like a house or a condo, no one's going to look at this for you. You'll be on your own. It'll be your responsibility to figure this out, which is why this video is getting recorded today. If you're buying a commercial property, banks are obsessed with debt cover. That's their usual number one metric. And honestly, it should be for you too.
So Lon, as someone looks at this from they have some properties now and they're going to buy more properties in the future, do you recommend people look at their current portfolio and their debt coverage ratio, or is it only for new properties they're buying as we're heading into recession?
Oh, so glad you asked that. It's really both. So what you're going to find for the typical investor, like if they bought a house or a condo, say 4 years ago, and they haven't refinanced, that house may be worth 60, 70% more than it is today, but their mortgage has stayed the same. And the mortgage rates 4 years ago were really attractive. So that debt service is very attractive. Meanwhile, what's happened to rents over the last 4 years? Well, they've gone up a huge amount. So you should find that the debt cover ratio will get a little bit better every year because your debt's fixed, but your rents get better and your cash flow should be getting better. But you should look at that. If you're thinking about doing a refinance, you may find, particularly with houses in Denver, that the house is worth so much money that you could refinance and take more cash out than maybe you should. If you maxed out your refinance, your debt service ratio might be too skinny. And since for residential, they don't look at that as their criteria, they'll just give you all the cash and set you up. So if you go spend the money and then we have a tough recession, you might be just a little uncomfortably tight on cash. Don't put yourself in that position. Either take a little less out on your refinance or max out the refinance, but put some away in a reserve fund just in case something happens. Great question.
Lon, thank you so much. This was a great tidbit for people. Keep in mind, we're heading into recession. Look at debt coverage ratio. I know it's a new topic for many investors out there, especially residential investors, but it's a timely topic for directly investing and also doing passive investments as well.
Yep.
Because it's a great way to look at how are the underlying assets performing.
Yep.
So if you guys have any more questions out there, reach out to Lon, reach out to myself, and make sure to check out more of the videos and resources on the website. Thank you.
Thank you.